Hello and welcome back to the channel after what feels like a very long time. Today I'm going to be making a new lathe cabinet for my engineering lathe. I've got some sketches here which I'll talk you through, but the first thing to do is cut all the timber to size, and whilst I'm doing that I'll overlay some images of the design that I've come up with. So just as a brief overlay here, this is what I'll essentially be designing with some drawers here, which will only be 40mm high, so they won't cover the full depth, 3 shelves, and a base and a top here. There'll be some casters on the bottom, and you can see a few notes here. I am going to change the OSB part as I haven't quite got enough timber to do that, so I'll use some of the other timber to save me having to buy more. And you can see this is how they're mounted with 2 little sort of pins here made out of wood, and that's how the shelves and drawers will be slid out. So what you can see on the screen now is a brief overlay of the CAD model. So it's modelled in green just as a background colour, just so you can see what it looks like. Hopefully it clears things up. I'll do a proper show of this later on in the video, but this is what I'm building it for. It's my new engineering lathe. It's a SIG or SIG C1 micro lathe from Axminster. It's about 10-15 years old. It's brilliant. It's got auto feeds, really nice travel on all the slides, tailstock, and obviously you've got a nice 3-jaw chuck there. I am quite familiar with metal lathes, having used them quite a lot at university, so it's something I've been looking at getting for a while. So I'll do a little bit of a more in-depth video about that, but this video is mostly focused on building a cabinet for it. So it's a very typical British day, pouring rain outside, so I may have to bring the shutter down if it gets too wet, so the lighting may decrease slightly, but I'll do my best to keep it open. So I'm going to start by cutting all of the side panels, and then we'll work on doing the top and bottom. So let's get going. So reviewing these sketches, I realised I made one mistake. I forgot to account for the height of the casters, which would be 100mm. So by doing this, I need to now reduce this total height here by 100mm, which is fine because that just gets me 728mm. I forgot to add this into my CAD model, which is fine because I can just correct it in here. I could go back and edit the drawings, which would only take me about 5 minutes, but it's only the height dimension that gets altered, so I'm not really too concerned about that. These bits will obviously also be altered, but everything just gets reduced by 100mm, so that'll be 33.3, that'll be 33.3, etc. Well, for these ones. So it's not too difficult to do. So that now means I need to cut the length of the panels to all be 692mm, which will get me that one, and that one. So we're going to go and cut those now. For the side panels, I used the table saw to rip them down. These were only about 9mm thick. This drawings originally specified 12, but I didn't actually have any 12mm in thickness, so I just used the 9mm instead. I then used the jigsaw to cut the other panels, purely because I didn't really have the space to work around where the table saw currently was, and I also didn't fancy having to change all the settings when I still had another side panel to do. So I just used the jigsaw instead for a change, and to be honest, I hadn't used the saw for quite a while, so it's quite nice to get to use a different tool again. For the runners which the drawers were to sit on, I used the table saw as I wanted them all to be exactly the same dimension, so rather than trying to do this by hand with the jigsaw, I opted for the table saw. So what I'm doing now is laying strips down for where the drawer runners will sit. Now what I've done is left about a 1mm gap each side, and this will just allow them to expand and contract and have a bit of wiggle room as well as they move about in the slides. So by the looks of things, I didn't film any footage of how I put the runners in, but all it was simply measuring the distances and then setting up some sort of parallel blocks just so that I had each of the runners set at a certain height. It really wasn't that complicated, and then it was just a sense of screwing them in and making sure they all fit correctly. So with the box now mostly assembled, it's now time to move on to doing the shelves. So I've got some OSB and some MDF here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make that into a couple of shelves. So I'll have 3 here, and then there'll be a couple across here. So these are going to have about a 1mm gap to allow it to slide easily in and out, and then there'll also be carpet inlay to rest the tools on. So let's get on with making that. As you can see by the numerous paint stains on this piece of MDF, I really wasn't planning on buying any different timbers for this project. I wanted to use up what I had, and this OSB was actually from an old workbench from my previous workshop. If you're interested in checking that video out, go and have a look on the channel. Now with the shelves assembled, you can see there's gaps in this, but that's just because I haven't yet pulled this square. When the top base plate is on, then those will all be pulled square. So now I'll move on to this side, and then we can make the sort of cupboard parts and the drawer runners that the carpet will sit on. I then cut down the white chipboard that I had left over from a previous project. I also did the carpet off camera here just using a craft knife and cut that all up to size. Again, the carpet was just left over from a previous bit of work that had been done, And all of these things was just a case of using bits up, so I didn't have to buy more. So what I've done now is cut in the drawer bits. Now you can see there's some slight gaps in the corner here, but I'm not too worried about those, as I'll just fill them with a bit of filler. But you can see how the drawer goes nicely in and out. I will need to pull this in slightly when I screw the top on and add some supporting battens across the top. But for now, I'm pretty happy with that. I just need to make one more drawer for the centre down there. I don't have any more of this nice white wood here. I've only got ones with chipboard on it, so I'll have to do that and then paint over it, I think, as that's the only real option I can see. Now I've shown myself building one of the shelves here, so it's just a case of putting the chipboard together, clamping it down, and then drilling some screws through, making sure they're all countersunk neatly. So I've now cut the shelves to size here. One's out of OSB and one's out of MDF. The original design did state to use OSB, but I didn't have enough. I thought I would, but I didn't. This is why I should measure what you've got first. So I'm just using what I've got so that I can save some money and not have to buy new material. And I've got enough out of this to make 2 shelves, and it doesn't really matter, different woods. They'll be covered up by carpet and everything, and same with these drawers once they're finished as well. Oh, there's a screw in there. But yeah, that'll be the same in here as well. Now you can see here I had a little bit of trouble getting the shelf to sit at the right height, which unfortunately did mean that I did end up doing 2 screw holes. However, they're hidden by both shelves, so it wasn't a big deal. So I simply got it to the right height using a bit of oak MDF next to me and then screwed it in. So as you can now see, I've got all the shelves and all the drawers put in, and I've also screwed the top plate on now as well. Now the lathe itself has 3 mounting brackets, which are here, and then there's 2 underneath here, so I'm not going to do that until I've got the casters on the bottom of the cabinet. The last step of this project was to add these locking casters. I added these just to make the workbench easy to move around, and it makes it much more easy to use as well. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry it's been such a long time since I released a video, but hopefully I'll release a few more soon. I've also got some other videos lined up, so ring making and maybe some more car themed stuff too. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.